Welcome back to this afternoon conversation. It's Speak It, but it is not Thursday. We are nearing the end of Better Hearing and Speech Month. And I have an exclusive interview with Dr. Shayla Ferguson. She is an audiologist here in the Houston area. And we always talk about Better Hearing and Speech Month, but audiologists put the H in the month, and we can't let this month go by without talking about the importance of hearing. Without further ado, we will bring Dr. Ferguson up, and we have a celebrity case study for you. Good afternoon, Shayla.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak it with us. And I called you Shayla, forgive me, Dr. Ferguson. Well, I have to give you your respect, even though you are my sister. You are here to speak it.
Yes.
So let's jump right into it. Tell us about Tank. Everybody heard about 2 weeks ago, he dropped this news on us. He revealed that he was going deaf in one of his ears. Can you talk to us about that case? What do you know about that?
Yes, so I heard the video as well, and I was looking it up and I saw, okay, so it was back on May 12th, he made the announcement about referring to his right ear going deaf in the right ear and losing some hearing in the left ear as well. And he mentioned that it was all of a sudden and that he also had some dizziness, vertigo, that was part as well. And so anytime an audiologist hears someone say, all of a sudden my hearing just went, the first thing we think, sudden sensory neural hearing loss. And what that basically means is that quickly someone notices that the hearing is just diminished, it's just gone. I may hear like a air first or feel or have a pop sensation, and then I hear nothing on that side. So, with Tank's situation, I'm sure as audiologists heard the story, we all are like, show us the audiogram. We want to see the audiogram.
What is an audiogram?
And that's what an audiogram is the graph that we use to record a person's response. Whenever you take a hearing test, raise your hand, press the button whenever you hear the beep, when you hear the tone. Well, an audiogram is when we plot your response. It's called a threshold. So that's the softest sound you're able to hear at that particular frequency. So we test from a low bassy tone, which is a low frequency, all the way up to a higher frequency, more like a beep, beep. Those are your higher frequency, high pitched tones. So we want to know what's the softest level you're able to hear and at what frequency. So with sudden sensory neural hearing loss, someone will just not hear anything, where it may, if we test the hearing, it may show severe to profound hearing loss. So with Tank's situation, that's the first thing most audiologists think, sudden hearing loss. Mm-hmm. There's other scenarios that could possibly have that same result, such as something called Meniere's disease. And that's when there's just an abnormal buildup of fluid in the inner ear that could trigger vertigo, hearing loss. Something else called an acoustic neuroma, which is a non-cancerous tumor. If it presses against the nerve, the hearing nerve, that can also have a result of vertigo and what have you, and the hearing loss as well. But with Tank, I know he mentioned the loss of the hearing, and then I believe a couple of days later, he came back and said that he did have an MRI and that the MRI was fine. So right now it appears that the doctors are in the ruling out, trying to rule out different scenarios to figure out what is causing this vertigo, what is causing this sudden sensory neural hearing loss. So as far as an acoustic neuroma, we can rule that out because the MRI was normal.
Okay.
So then now we're thinking, okay, is it something that is triggered by viral infection? We know he didn't mention any type of trauma. Head trauma can also cause that, but he didn't suffer any type of trauma. He said all of a sudden, bam, it was there. So everything is pointing in the direction of the sudden sensory neural hearing loss, but we don't have all of the facts. But he did mention that he is currently taking steroids And steroids is actually usually used when the condition is not known. If we don't know the underlying condition, then generally is an aggressive treatment using the steroids, and that helps to reduce inflammation, swelling. It helps the body to fight off illness. So when a physician cannot pinpoint the cause of this, aggressive steroids is generally done as far as the treatment plan.
Oh, okay. So you've given us so much good information already about understanding sudden hearing loss and some things that people can do, like he got an MRI. So if you're experiencing that, so I would presume you go to your doctor and they will get the MRI, you start the testing. Definitely do not ignore it. And with that, he said he got a shot. Was that a steroid shot in your eardrum or something? Can you talk a little bit about how they administered those steroids from what you read?
So with steroids, it's either oral steroids taken by mouth, or you can. There's also a direct injection where it's a injection into the middle ear, where the steroid will eventually travel to the inner ear. So that's just one of the ways to treat by steroid, a direct injection.
Okay. And could that have been caused by his singing? That was a comment somebody said. He's an entertainer, he's in the music industry, you're around loud noise all the time. Could that have impacted that, or is that a different type of hearing loss?
Well, that's a different type of hearing loss. Hearing loss to noise exposure, then of course it depends on the decibel, which is the loudness of the noise. Generally, over a period of time, it's a gradual decline in hearing. So like if you are in, let's see, people who wear their buds or their headsets and they're listening to loud noise, loud music or what have you, usually they will not notice hearing loss until many years later. So you think you may not have any type of impact, or you're not affecting your hearing because you don't notice it right now. We're talking 5, 10, 15 years later.
Oh, wow.
Then you may notice it, but there's hair cells in your inner ear. So if there's exposure to loud noise, there's other things as well in addition to loud noises, but exposure to loud noise will eventually wear on those hair cells that's in your inner ear. So you may not notice anything until the hair cells are just completely damaged.
Got it.
You can't tell when your hair cells are weakening in your ear. That's not anything that you would notice. But you notice when you're not hearing very well. And at that point is when the hair cells have become to deteriorate.
Okay, so is that you just noticed that you're having to turn the TV up a little louder, the radio up a little louder, and you're having to get people to repeat? What did you say?
Things are just not clear. Are you have to ask others to repeat, or the volume is slowly going up on the TV or the radio, or you notice that you're hearing, but you're not understanding. So two totally different things. I can hear you, I hear the volume, I know someone's speaking, but I can't understand what they're saying. Those are key signs that there may have been some damage to the hair cells in the inner ear, which is the medical term is the cochlea, which is our inner ear. The hair cells are in, and it's designed to move and respond to different frequencies. And whenever it weakens or deteriorates, that's when you'll notice difficulty hearing or understanding.
Okay. One of the things that Tank said in one of his follow-up videos was that it sounded like it was a muffled phone or something like that. Like that's how he described his hearing. He said he was going deaf in one ear and he didn't hear so well in the other ear. And he described it as sounding like a muffled phone or something like that.
Yes. So that's the situation of anytime. I know we jumped into a lot of things. So just hearing in general, how do we hear? So there's 3 parts of the ear. There's the outer ear, middle ear, and inner ear. So the outer ear is responsible for collecting the sound. Then the sound travels through the ear canal, and then once it reaches the eardrum, that sends the signal into vibration. And that vibration travels through the middle ear, then eventually reaches the inner ear, And then that's where it turns into an electrical signal, and then it sends it to the brain for us to process the sound. Anytime there's a disruption, damage to any part of the auditory pathway is when hearing loss occurs. Now, it depends on where that interruption or that damage is occurring. Is it occurring in the outer ear, the middle ear, or the inner ear? In Tank's situation, with the sudden hearing loss, it sounds as though it is the inner ear. And then anytime there's damage to the inner ear, it's like, what part of the inner ear? Is it the low frequencies? Is it the high frequencies? If it's a combination of lows, mids, and highs, then you're not hearing, so everything sounds reduced. The volume is reduced, and you may also have trouble with understanding, because our low frequencies, that's where we get the volume of speech. High frequencies, that's where we get the clarity and understanding. So our consonants, that's our understanding. Our vowels hold the power. That's how we can hear. I can hear you. So someone with high frequency hearing loss, I can hear you. They're hearing the vowels, but they can't hear those consonants. So that's how they have trouble deciphering from bat versus rat versus cat. They can hear the eh, but I can't hear the b, those consonants.
Girl, you're taking me back to intro to audiology. I was like, whew.
So in Tank's situation, it appears that it may be from lows to highs that may have been impacted. But if we're talking about a situation of sudden hearing loss, because we don't know all of the facts, we're just kind of throwing things out there of possibilities. Mm-hmm. If it's a case of sudden sensory neural hearing loss, it can be reversible. So it can be reversed. But the key is fast and aggressive treatment. So generally, the time window with sudden hearing loss is 1 to 2 weeks treatment after the onset. So after you've noticed it, you have like a 1 or 2 week time window to try to treat that aggressively. So that's why, as you mentioned earlier,
looks like we might be having some technical difficulties here. I'm going to try to get Shayla back on. She froze on me. Thank you all for hanging in there. I see the audience is still hanging live here. So let's see if we can't get Dr. Ferguson back on. She was getting into the good part of the conversation. In the meantime, drop your questions in the comments. Thank you for tuning in to this mid-afternoon conversation as we speak it about hearing loss and the impact of hearing loss. Shayla was updating us and telling us the situation, or doing a case study on Tank. So drop your questions if you have any comments or questions. When we're able to get her back in, we will continue to move forward. As we know, May is Better Hearing and Speech Month, and it's very important to take care of your speech, and it's important to take care of your hearing. If you notice that you're hearing differently, as Shayla was saying in the first part of this, and your sounds, you're not hearing conversation clearly and things like that, go ahead and set up an appointment to see an ear, nose, and throat specialist, or get an interview or consult with an audiologist. And it looks like she's trying to connect back in. There
we go. Yes.
Welcome back. Well, you were getting into the good part.
Yes, internet issues, but we're back on. Yes, so as you mentioned, that is something that if you notice something as far as the hearing, just not hearing well, sometimes people will chalk it off to, oh, maybe I have a wax buildup, or maybe it's my allergies or something like that. But it's something that you definitely want to seek medical attention because of that time window of the treatment, the aggressive treatment, the steroid treatment, getting an MRI done, and what have you. But if there's a situation where after that 1 or 2 week time window, if the hearing hasn't improved, then there is a possibility where, okay, well, some of the hearing may be restored, but not fully restored.
Okay. And if Tank were to come into your clinic, what advice would you have for him during this time?
At this time, I would definitely advise him to continue with the follow-up and the treatment, and knowing that, of course, anything that happens suddenly is something that's considered to be something that's life-altering. Things will have to change. So in his case, as far as his hearing, if the hearing is permanent and it's not fully restored, then there are options such as assistive listening devices, such as an amplified headphone or headset. Hearing aid is an option, just depending on the amount of hearing loss, just as far as his word and speech understanding, how well he's able to understand speech on that side. And then he also has one good ear. So that's something to also address, because there are situations, there are people who have severe, profound hearing loss in both ears. He has, I don't know what he has as far as the severity, but the amount of hearing loss is on that one side. So there's hearing aids, and hearing aids have come a long way, where there's a music program in a hearing aid. So as far as with his profession and his career, being able to hear his own voice versus the music that's in the background, there's a music program where it's just the press of a button and it switches into that mode where it expands the frequency range, where it's picking up more of the low frequencies, which would most musicians like to hear more of the lower frequencies. So that music program will actually expand that frequency range, will make it easy for him to monitor his voice and then also hear the music as well. So there's definitely options, but it's almost like a counseling of realistic expectations, what to expect, and things that he may have to adjust just depending on what's going on. But right now, I guess right now we'll just have to wait for another update.
Yeah.
The last update, he mentioned that the MRI was clear, which is great. That's great news. And I also know that he mentioned that they did notice some additional decline in the right ear. So at this point, I don't know, we know when was the actual onset of him noticing it. So that's also key. When did he notice it? When did he reach out for medical help? And then that lets us know exactly where he is in that window. Once we get to that 2 to 4 week window, then we're looking at, okay, so if the hearing is not completely restored, then there may still be some loss there that may be permanent. Okay. And then that's when we're looking to the hearing aids, the assisted listening devices, just depending on his severity and the amount of hearing loss.
Okay, so this is all very good information, and this is our celebrity case study. What would you have to say to people who are listening now as it relates to we're going to say hearing health or hearing conservation?
Yes, so there's so much to say about that. So I will try to shorten it. We don't always just think about our hearing. Like we know it's there, we can hear, we're not having any problems, but there's things that you can do now as far as hearing conservation. If you're wearing earbuds or you're wearing a headset, just be mindful of the volume. If there's someone who's sitting next to you and you have on headsets or earbuds, and the person next to you can hear clearly what you're listening to, whether it's music or whatever you're listening to, and they can hear and understand it, then it's too loud. So that's something you want to keep in, that's something that you want to keep in mind. Music, just be mindful. It's just the duration that you're putting yourself in that particular noise environment. And if you're in a work environment that has high level, high decibel, of course, then the hearing protection is definitely great to use. And if you're noticing something, if you're just noticing I'm not quite hearing well, or things sound different, or you just always just listen to your body. So always listen to your body. So if you're noticing that things just don't seem the same, just go have a hearing test, get your hearing checked, see what's there. If it's something there, then you're able to address it immediately. If not, then it's something that you can just always just be mindful and know that just don't take this for granted. Don't take it for granted. And if you notice something, like I said, just listen to your body.
Very good. Now, what about live music lovers? We're getting ready to get back into the world. People are getting their vaccines. Concerts, I think, are going to start popping back up. What about when you go to these concerts, or you're going to these big music festivals and the music is very loud?
It is. And all of those things are great, and things that we all enjoy. Few things with concerts: don't stand too close to any speakers. So that's not a great idea. Sometimes we're around loud music, you may have a little ringing that you may hear in your ear. The medical term is tinnitus. You may hear a little, but then that'll go away. So with being around any type of loud noises it has a lot to do with the duration.
Mm.
The amount of time that you're spending in that environment. But absolutely, go enjoy the concerts. If your ears are sensitive, then you may want to bring some little plugs where you may step back from it for a moment, then you come back. It just depends. But we all would enjoy a nice concert. It's something that you're not doing on a daily basis. You're not around it 7 days a week for 8+ hours a day. So go and enjoy your concert.
Okay, so we can enjoy the music. Just don't stand close to the speaker. And
Don't
what is it? The temporary threshold shift. That's not necessarily a bad thing. What is that anyway? So when you hear the loud music and then your hearing changes suddenly for that moment, talk to us a little bit about that real quick.
So that is a temporary threshold shift. And as I mentioned earlier, threshold is the softest sound that you're able to hear at any particular frequency. Well, if you're exposed to a loud noise and you notice that your hearing has gone down, or it sounds muffled, doesn't really sound clear. So at that moment, there has been a dip as far as those hair cells that I mentioned earlier, those hair cells that respond to different sounds that may have just been altered slightly, but not to the point where it's permanent damage. So you may notice that, okay, things don't really sound as clear. My hearing sounds muffled. And then after several hours, you'll notice that the hearing has come back. So that's what's called a temporary threshold shift.
Okay. Thank you for all of this information. And I'm just thinking of things to help our community. I want to talk about the link really quickly between possible hearing loss or fluid in the ears for children who may have speech disorders or speech delays. Can you talk a little bit about the connection to hearing and speech and what parents need to know?
Yes. So as far as hearing and speech, with children and ear infections, early intervention is always going to be key. So if you've noticed, if your child has a hearing ear infection, you want to be certain that you are giving them the medication that's prescribed. You're putting those drops in your ear, and you are adamant at making sure that they are receiving all the medication, because a child speaks based on what they hear. So if you have a toddler who has an ear infection, speech is not clear. So you can be speaking to your toddler and if there's fluid behind the eardrum in the middle ear, so you're speaking to them, and this is what you're sounding like to them. This is what, and when they're in that critical stage of speech development, that's definitely when you want them to be able to hear every single sound, consonant, word clearly, so they're able to produce those sounds. So if your child, one sign is if they're always tugging at their ear, we're talking little ones, tugging at their ear or sticking their finger in their ear, that's a sign that there possibly might be an ear infection going on. So just being mindful and observe those things. So if that's something that they're doing constantly, playing with their ear, sticking their finger in their ear, that would be a great time to take them to their pediatrician that may warrant a referral to an ENT. But speech and hearing ties in very closely, especially for children. If your child is having trouble in school, sometimes teachers may feel that they're not paying attention. They're not listening to what I'm saying, where it may be they're not hearing or the sound is muffled. So that's another case where you just want to go and get it checked out. Go to your pediatrician, say, hey, can I just get their ears checked just to make certain that the hearing is okay? Because sometimes, with kids, they may just be ignoring us. That's just the truth. They may be ignoring us, but if it's something that's more constant, it's happening more often, more frequently, then definitely just bring them in, have a check just to be certain, because especially at that critical age, as far as for speech and language development, you want to make certain that they're hearing every single word properly.
Yes, very good. So is there anything else that we need to say before you jump off? Because I feel like audiologists, you all do such important work, and definitely you're kind of behind the scenes. And then also you're a Black audiologist. So I think that is very special, because we know in communication sciences and disorders, we are the 8%. And audiologists, I think you were saying, how many Black audiologists are there?
Yes. So we make one article stated 2.4% of the profession. Another one stated about 3.5. So we're somewhere in between that 2.5 to 3.5%. So both articles indicate that we make a very low percent of the population. So anytime anyone is interested in audiology, or someone that looks like us or looks like me and they express any interest, I'm all for it, because as we know, representation matters, and we want to get into a state of mind that someone who looks like me can be an audiologist, and someone who looks like me, even though I walk into the conference room, I get the looks of, is she in the right room? Yes, I am.
Yes. Okay, very good. So thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and do this afternoon edition of Speak It. I guess we'll call it a lunch and learn. Do you have any resources or a way that people can stay connected or get more information about hearing?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So if for any questions or any additional questions, or just any general question, I can be reached at, you can email me at houstonhearing@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook at Shayla Ferguson, and I would be happy to address any questions that you may have. Audiology is such a rewarding field, and sometimes people just don't know about the profession. So just getting it out there that we do so much. It's a great area. There's so many different specialties within audiology. There's pediatric audiologists if you prefer to work with children. There's educational audiologists who work in the school district. There's dispensing audiologists if you just prefer to fit and dispense hearing aids. So there's so many different areas of audiology. So yeah, any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to address and answer any questions.
Wonderful. And Shayla is not only a wonderful audiologist, she is an entrepreneur. So can you tell us what's new on your horizons also, that the people can get involved in, or what they need to know about you in your entrepreneurial journey. I'll say entrepreneurial journey, excuse me.
Yes, so when I'm not practicing as an audiologist, my husband and I actually launched a business about a year ago with the automobile detailing company. So we are a wash and go mobile service. We bring the wash to you. So with all this rain that we've been having, I'm sure that there is definitely will be a need. So you can reach out to us at www.wash and the letter N go mobileservice.com. You're able to schedule your appointment through the website. Everything is done through the website. And then you select your date, your time, and then a mobile wash member comes to you, whether you're at home, at work, having lunch. We bring the wash to you. So yes, so that's something else that I have on my plate, but I'm excited about it.
Wonderful. So we'll drop these after this live chat. We will drop that information in the comments for you all. Thank you for tuning in. We had some hellos from Candace Williams, our line sister. Hey, Candace.
Hey,
Candace. And Mia Street jumped on and she said, hey, roommate.
Hi, roommate.
Yeah. Hey, roommate. Hey, classmate. So hi to Amy. Amy is our producer and supporter of this show, and thank you to all the family and friends who tuned in and who are supporters of Speak It. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you share this. This is really good information. This was a case study on Tank, and then also it gives you information to help support your family members, your children. It could be your mother, your father, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent who could be having issues with hearing, and we want everybody in our community to rise to live their best life in every area, especially when it comes to our health. It is so key. We consider our health as currency. If you're not feeling your best, oh man, Aquila Johnson said, thank you all. So yeah, if you're not feeling your best, go see your doctor, go see an audiologist, go see an ENT, get your child checked out. And that's all we have for you this afternoon. You make sure you go out and speak it.